this weekend. And all our speakers since Friday, which seems like 5 seconds ago, and all of you. No. Obviously me. I don't even need reminding. If there was no audience, there'd be no conference. There'd be a load of technical nutters and egomaniacs running around going, let's have a conference. Without an audience, without our speakers, there's nothing. Give yourselves the most amazing appreciative. Know your own worth, right? So, to end an amazing, mind-blowing weekend, we've got some homework. So it's going to be some remote viewing, and we've got these forms. Some of the forms have been handed out. Tony's got an exercise. If you haven't got a set of forms, can you raise your hands, and I'll come round now with the forms and paper, and Tony will let me know. But if you don't want to participate, don't raise your hands. But this is to do with the remote viewing. So, keep your hands raised, and I'll come round.
Just give it a minute. Yeah, two each, yeah. That'll be great. I'll let you. Well, while Gemma's handing out the sheets, I'll start because we've got a short period of time here to get through, and I'm going to give you an insight into remote viewing. I was discussing yesterday the Russian techniques, which is called information channeling, and the remote viewing equal to that in Russia is an information channeler based on brain tuning. So it tunes the brain to the universe, and it receives information quantum from it. It's a very clever system, and I haven't seen the methodology, but the methodology we are going to use today in this very small crash course is something known as scan by coordinate, or the CRV technique, coordinate remote viewing. I'll explain it to you. I don't class myself as a remote viewer, but I used remote viewing and the science behind it to understand just what the hell was happening to me. And I'd just like to share with you this picture, which was delivered to me by somebody from somebody else in Russia. And it's this there. Can you see that? That is actually meant to be a plasma being. That's actually meant to be, it was exclusively released to me. And before I gave a talk at Holy Island a few years ago, I was just about to go into the tent and give a talk, and that came in. And as you can see, that's a plasma-type UFO. I believe them to be from under the sea. I believe them to be an underwater maritime ET group that we're dealing with. That's a typical picture of what I think is a plasma being from Russia. Not widely known, but I just thought I'd share what one looks like. And in my vast experience with them, they're actually very nice. They're beautiful, serene calmness about them. And this is what happens with them, you see. There is an evolved look about them. They're evolved in many ways. So we're gonna move on from that, and we're gonna get into the remote viewing, and we're gonna go beyond. This is an old presentation that I have, because I didn't think I was speaking today, but we're going to go slightly beyond what's known as the Advanced Aviation Threat Information Program. The point of that is, I haven't got a lot of time, I'll get through it as quickly as I can, but the point of AATIP is that it's an Advanced Aviation Threat Information Program. There's 32 sub-projects to it. The bit that's classified is quantum entanglements and communication. And the reason why that would be classified is because that's the key to the gate in communicating with extraterrestrials, but they want to keep that hush. First vision, my first vision was at age 2. That was like a Hindu type elephant vision of elephants coming through the wall, deeply symbolic. And another example of what I think the maritime group actually looked like. That's a very close resemblance to what one of their women actually looked like. Submarines were being monitored by them. And here we've got just very quickly an incident that happened over my house at the height of monitoring my mother, where I believe this maritime group appeared again at speed, and I believe that's been identified by Jane's Defence Weekly as an Airbus. So what's happened is this UFO has come in at very big speed. It went so fast that our slowest speed on the player couldn't keep up with it, and it appeared. We believe that to be part of an ET base in the Pacific after years of research and analysis. Their indication to me was, we are from the ocean deep, we are from the ocean water, we use oceans in other universes, and we use yours as well, and that would be considered highly classified. And I think that's the same type of UFO as seen over the Pacific region. So it's just to give you some insight on that. move through that. I'm going to get to the chase now. I'll just miss all this and let's begin. Okay, so remote viewing, what is it? Well, remote viewing is the ability to transcend time and space and gather remote information using more than normal or known sixth senses. And we're going to use something called CRV, coordinate remote viewing. The Russians use something called information channeling, and the differences in technique are quite radical. One of the earliest psychic spies, I explored psychic espionage because of these factors here, and the science provided answers to me. One of the first psychic spies was Sir Francis Walsingham, who was the founder of what is now known as MI6 in 1500, and he created a network of spies that were actually witches that spied on the Spanish at the time. They were having a big hoo-ha with the Spanish at that time. The Oracle of Delphi as well, they used to, in the earliest times, they used the Oracle of Delphi to detect what was going on. There was one oracle who advised the king, actually misadvised the king, and the king thought that it meant victory in battle, but it actually didn't. He actually lost the battle because he misunderstood. And one of the most famous kind of paranormal James Bonds was Queen Elizabeth's, the first intelligencer. I've forgotten his name. John Dee, thank you. John Dee, of course, you know more than me. Yeah, John Dee, he was the first kind of psychic spy I would class. And he used, what was fascinating about John Dee is the signatures of Queen Elizabeth to him was signed 007. And that's very interesting. So he predicted various things using a scrying technique, including the arrival of the Spanish Armada and the fact that they would get them back. This is a typical coded and encrypted letter of the time, you see. So it's a fascinating kind of journey. And of course, we cannot forget Dion Fortune in the magical Battle of Britain. One of her relatives came up to me at a conference and confirmed to me that she was indeed involved in battles in Epping Forest, magical rituals in Epping Forest to keep the Germans away. Well, if you look at it from the point of view of, let's say, quantum mechanics and consciousness, it kind of like is opening an information channel. It's kind of like opening an Igores thought form, as we would call it, in time and space. And this lady indicated in her autobiography that there was giant angels moving across the coast of Britain, keeping the Germans away. It was quite the magical Battle of Britain. And they had these magical rituals in Epping Forest. So Dion Fortune, it was called the Magical Battle of Britain. If we get into MI6 as well, we know that a friend of mine, she used to remote view for the Secret Intelligence Service. I don't know what their technique actually is, although she termed it subspace aspect. So I just don't know. The Russians called it, and the Americans as well, actually called it the information matrix. So when your consciousness is out in the continuum gathering information, there's terminology for it. She had a dream while remote viewing of the Belgrano sinking. Well, during the remote viewing session, so she says, she was actually looking down at one of the sailors who was out in the sea, and she will never forget the terrified look in his face when he looked at her. It was quite terrifying. And so the deep component of psychic espionage perhaps began with the occult, as it always did. We've got this guy here, Sidney Goltsieb, and they began it in the early days with something called MK often. Often we achieve our goals, often we do not. And that was to do with them contacting dead spies and trying to contact them from beyond the grave and extract intelligence from them. And it got absolutely, completely foobarred, to be quite frank with you. And then we moved into something called the Collins elite, which is something I often talk about before the birth of the remote viewing Project Stargate. You could perhaps, if I've got this correct, Russia's Project Stargate was called Project 693, but that's another story. We're doing the American stuff now. The Collins elite, they established an agency because they believed that UFOs had a demonic component to them, which they do. It's very, very complex. And I referred yesterday to a guy called Ray Boesch, who did, I think it was on the CDs yesterday, and he did a report to the Department of Defense in America, or they actually approached him, and they indicated that there was a situation going on between non-human entities and their military, and it was a very tricky situation, and Ray was shown photos of people, I will just put it in pleasant terms, people who had been shot down by them, as in psychics who had tried to interrogate them and got off the worst. I've had my interaction with this NHE. I've seen it firsthand, and I'm lucky to be alive, I assure you. nasty, very nasty stuff. And it is rumoured by Rick Redfern in his book Final Events. That's Rick Redfern, Final Events, which is like a story of the Collins elite. It was rumoured that it came to the attention of the Collins elite by a guy called Jack Parsons. He was a genius and occultist, and it would appear that he had a liaison with Ron Hubbard. But what was happening with Jack Parsons, according to the Collins elite, who consisted of the Navy, the FBI, and the Army, they detected that there was occult sacrifices going on, and they didn't quite know what the cause was. And they also concluded that rips were occurring in space-time and UFOs were coming in. There's an excellent book by Frank Fascino called Shoot Them Down, all about the US air war of the 1950s. It's absolute chaos. You've got US starfighter jets scrambling to attack UFOs. There's actually battles going on in the sky, and these jets, these special jets, would actually be firing, F-94s, would be firing multiple rocket salvos at these UFOs to disrupt their energy field and bring them down. There's also a strange confirmation of that in the Washington Post, where they were asking for anti-aircraft personnel and all that kind of thing. So it's known as the UFO air war. So there has been some collision in the skies above with all this, I would suggest. Getting into it, so Russia had its own paranormal kind of remote viewing program, which consisted of components, which consisted of metacontact, new cosmology, metacontact and new cosmology, and these were the Russian ones. But we're going to look at something called Project Stargate. Its initial mission was to assess other foreign RV operations. But when we say other foreign RV operations, these boys and girls in this unit didn't mean foreign as in China or Russia. They also meant foreign as in alien. They wanted to know what was going on. And there is no doubt in my mind that when they were doing these remote reviewing operations, they would have probably seen within the space-time continuum other beings and consciousness that is alien coming back at them, saying hello to them. It has happened. There are human-looking extraterrestrials out there. I do believe, it is my opinion, that Andromeda is quite populated, and they'll have no doubt with these techniques they will have seen them. We're going to do a very simple technique today that is actually strangely effective, and I think you'll find that some of you will actually probably get the target. There's one lady I was speaking to earlier, and I was talking to her, and she was telling me about the paranormal experiences she was having. And I actually said that it could be that she's got a developed holographic form of vision. It's complex, but you want to look at a guy called, you want to type into if you write this down in the internet, I just didn't have time to discuss it with you, but it's called what's it called now? Embryonic holography. Embryonic holography. Considered in the 1970s quite secret, but it's embryonic holography, and it's how the DNA kind of like communicates with the brain to cause the holographic visions. Therefore, I could actually be stood here now as has happened, and I'll have a vision enter my head even though I'm wide awake with my eyes open. It has happened, it's quite a shocker. And that's holography kicking in and seeing beyond the range. So they used RV initially to gather intelligence. Now the thing is, in simple terms, I'll put it in simple terms, so your remote viewing is, I've got a book in front of you, you close your eyes and you get thoughts, feelings and impressions from that book. However, what you've got in front of you, the sheet in front of you, cost nearly, by the Department of Defence, nearly £2 million to develop, based on a system called signal from noise, where the conscious mind is shut off and the subconscious mind is communicating with the target. The Russians called it brain tuning, where they tuned it to the information cosmos. And how the hell the Russians managed to tune it instead of what we're going to see now, I need to find out, because it's fascinating. So that was that. And one of the key players in all this was, of course, Hal Puthoff, and he developed this program called Project Stargate, and he was in collaboration with a man called Russell Targ. Highly recommend the work of Hal Puthoff when he discusses online a very good lecture about Brazil's Project Saucer, which was about a UFO crash that went horribly wrong. And the US projects came under there's various things to note. For example, Ingo Swann, the Russian equivalent of Ingo Swann would be Alexei Savin, my good comrade in arms, Joseph McMoneagle, and Pat Price, Lynn Buchanan, who has advised me in the past I've needed specialist help because I'm an exceptional human experiencer, and I've actually needed special help. I've actually needed to speak to him. I couldn't speak to anyone else. I needed specialist guidance. He's a bit like a harbour master steering a boat into the harbour, as it were. One of his key mantras to me was, ability comes with responsibility, which is absolutely correct. So messing with occult forces, trying to influence people against their will, you're asking for trouble. Lynn Buchanan was ordered to assassinate Saddam Hussein, and he didn't want to do it, but he attempted to go ahead and do it anyway. And in his biography, he indicates that he became ill, he was hospitalized. So you can see everything is interconnected, and the recoil can be horrendous of it. David Morehouse, he's another one who revealed Project Stargate to the world. And he was having great trouble. I think he had some head injury and is in a hospital, and his abilities became quite apparent. All these programs that you're looking at here, Scan 8, Grill Frame, what we're doing tonight is Scan 8, Scan by Coordinate. Dragoon Absorb was all about remote influencing. The Russians call that walk-in mind operations, where they listen to somebody's thoughts and tune into them. And of course, Joseph McMoneagle, who I've been in communication with about various issues. He's the man who pointed me to his equal, Alexei Savin, in Russia. Alexei Savin and Joseph McMoneagle have liaised with each other. The Project Stargate unit has actually liaised with Special Abilities Unit 10,003 in joint operations, but that's not publicised. But both remote viewing units, Russia and America, have actively liaised with each other in joint operations. It's strange, isn't it? But that's the way it is. Ingo Swann, he was the founder of the remote viewing, the initial remote viewing Project Stargate. There was a situation, is it the rings of Jupiter, Saturn, the rings of Saturn? He accurately remote viewed the rings of Saturn before anybody else actually did it, before satellites went up there. He actually counted the rings correctly using this method that we're going to do. It's really interesting. Albert Stubblebine was actually real. They lampooned him in The Men Who Stare at Goats. And of course, there is David Morehouse, as we can see, and he was the guy who his book is called Revelations of a Psychic Warrior or something like that, and it's all about America's remote viewing project. Every country in the world back then, in the 70s or whatever, was on it. Russia was doing it, Czechoslovakia was doing it, Czechoslovakia especially was doing it. And so every country in the world was trying to get a psychic warfare edge on each other. It's as if, with the human beings, it's as if everything is geared up for war and violence, even in our most sacred realms. It's unbelievable, really. And of course, this guy was a guy called Pat Price. He was one of America's top remote viewers. We can see that that's his remote viewing drawing, the satellite image on the left there, and that's the actual drawing of the gantry crane that he did with this method in remote viewing. And what is interesting, and it is rumoured that the KGB actually got him because he was too good. He was far too accurate using this system. What is interesting, however, is during routine liaison with the KGB unit, the Americans astounded the Russians by actually drawing a top secret submarine base that nobody was meant to know about. That's documented. That was Joseph McMoneagle when he was working with Alexei Savin. And you won't find that information anywhere, but that's how I came across it. Of course, Lynn Buchanan, and he's been involved in this at all times, and he was the kind of guy who had a problem where he would be, let us say, in a building or somewhere like that, and he'd turn the electric off. This is a common problem among experiencers, not like myself. I've gone through the same phase. I'm not pretending that I have powers or anything like that, but I went through a strange phase where I could switch lights off in building. In fact, a few years ago when Ben was speaking at Probe in Blackpool, I remember he was talking, and I was on next, and I went to the main socket in this sports hall, and I just went, you better keep away from that. You know what you don't want to do that because you know what you're about near mains. Just be careful you don't turn the bloody thing off. Boom! Off it went. It did, yeah. Yeah. You hear him say, "Was that you?" Yeah. 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 And the power went off, and I thought, "Oh God, I've no control over this." And that's why Lynn Buchanan, being the good teacher that he is, said to me, "Tony, ability comes with responsibility." And my God, it does. You can't go around being a dickhead with this. You just cannot. But anyway, that's my little story for you. But we're going to get into it now anyway. So the method, we're looking at remote viewing. And the system they developed is effective. We may find that we get results when we're looking at a target. And what it basically is, as I say, I'll go back earlier, eyes closed, book closed, you're getting information from that book, thoughts, feelings and impressions, tell me what's in it. And what the Americans did is they developed a system that could bypass the consciousness so the subconscious could get into that book and retrieve information. Does that make sense so far? So it's like a system of eyeless sight, as we would call it. And the French actually had very good results with this in the 1900s. They were doing it, I've forgotten what it was called, something more or less to the theme of retinal vision, they called it. The British Secret Services were also involved in remote viewing as well. So they all got results for it. There was all some benefit behind intelligence gathering via this system. As we can see, the mind becomes an intelligence gathering instrument, which is what we're going to do today. And the US intelligence community required to counter a Soviet paranormal intelligence threat, so they developed this technique called CRV, Coordinate Remote Viewing. And it came under the various subject names. Some of the best remote viewers are not psychics. I remember doing many a session with all this to find that engineers, musicians are exceptionally good, and psychics are not. And the reason for this is because their minds are very noisy with sensual stimulus. They're overwhelmed with it, you see. Whereas engineers, there's something maybe going, a different sort of brain tuning going on with them. But there are results. I mean, there can be astounding results with remote viewing where they get the target absolutely nailed, which might be, I'm thinking what might happen. Let's just see now. So, remote viewing, it is nothing to do with the occult. You will find that these military units, Project Stargate, Russia's Special Ability Unit, frowned on occult practice, frowned on it. It wasn't like that at all. It's an attention management process, which it is, for gathering information. It's a natural process, and we have a conscious and subconscious system that communicates. I have to be very careful because I can sometimes hear bursts of people's subconsciousness, and it's very complex. But I have to be very careful with that as to what I'm hearing. Nothing's happened today, actually, but sometimes it can happen where I can hear somebody's inner thoughts. We've got the situation going on where the remote viewing process tunes into the unconscious collective, which is what it does, and that's it. The Russian RV unit called this an information energy field. The RV, the Americans called it universal mind matrix. So we can see that there are some, categories there that they used. In remote viewing, the viewer not only verbalizes what he or she is perceiving, but usually can also record it in writing sketches. Joseph McMoneagle did an excellent model of some sort of rocket base. It was one of them. They did an excellent model of this. But the biggest hilarious scandal of all, just imagine American military's top US Army psychic spy unit loses the keys to its building and they can't find it anywhere. And as Joseph McMoneagle said to me, he's meant to be remote viewer 01. He's got a Legion of Merit for gathering intelligence with unorthodox means, and they can't find the key to the bloody building. And they tried remote viewing, and they just couldn't find it. It's been an hilarious thing to this day. There you go, true story. Anyway, so remote viewing is not used to give psychic readings. We can't tell you the 2:30 at Kempton. It's rather a means of doing serious science research. However, you can use remote influencing. I wouldn't advise it. It's not a good thing to do. And that I would class that comes under, I call this 8 ability. So those kind of abilities go beyond the 6th sense. It's an 8th ability that people can develop. So it's part of a means of doing some serious science research. And as I say, that sheet in front of you, about 2 million in development, something like that. So what is known about remote viewing? Well, we can tell when we do the targeting work that we can describe a hidden object or a remote natural or architectural site, and the shape, form and colour are described, this is true. They're described much more reliably by inexperienced viewers. So we'll work a target and I bet you get the shape of it. I bet you get the shape of it, and I bet some of you will even get looking down on it like that, because in remote viewing, the subconscious actually looks down on the target. That always happens, yeah? I've experienced them. So there's some things to bear in mind. Factors that inhibits enhance. We can't tell you what the target is, so we can't do that. And you may find, this is interesting, the group collective may enhance remote viewing. So if I have a target, let us say St. Paul's Cathedral. Somebody might draw the dome, somebody might draw a window, somebody might draw the River Thames, and when you put it all together, you've got the collective target. That happened in Wales with a Buddhist temple that I'd selected as a target. And some people had got the kind of the unusual walls, some people had got the steps, and you put it all together, it was the target. So that's the group collective of enhanced remote viewing. And you become aware of filtering out mental chatter from the actual signal. It's a technique that takes years to perfect. And as we can see, if you look at your sheet there, we've got a TRN, and that stands for the target reference number. So I am going to give you a reference number. Now, the reference number, please don't get too hung up on that. It's nothing. Some people get confused and think the reference number is somehow the target and all this kind of thing. No, the reference number is designed to guide the subconscious as to where it needs to go in time and space to retrieve target data. That's all it is, nothing more. And the box is for you to draw what is termed an ideogram. And I'll explain that in a minute, because the ideogram, that box, will open a 3-second window into the collective mind and retrieve information like a zip file, except the Russians just went ping with the universe like a tuning fork and gathered information in a different methodology, which I find fascinating, but there you go. They used brain tuning, we're using ideogram, signal from noise, and a subconscious information process. Is that fine so far? Okay, wonderful. So as we can see, there's going to be, when I ask you to draw an ideogram in that box, are any of you familiar with remote viewing? Yeah? So yeah, okay. Some of you have done this though. Some of you have been to my lectures before have done this. But when we do this remote viewing, you will probably find that the ideogram symbols that you will draw, which I'll explain in a minute, in that box, if you can see, I will ask you to draw a little squiggle. And it'll appear to be a little squiggle, and you may ask yourself, what the hell's the point of that? But basically, these squiggles actually have a purpose, an intention, and a signal. The energetic explosion one, that was unbelievable. I did it with the Army Cadet Force a few years ago, and one of these young cadets got the target. It was a North Korean missile launch. He got the missile, he got the writing, he got the gantry, he got the smoke, and his ideogram was actually that. Energetics and explosion. It was actually an X with a circle. It's as if these you'll probably get structure man-made as well, the triangle one, and it's as if these ideograms speak a language to your conscious mind, telling you, giving hints as to what it is. If we go further into it, so what we've got to do, the ideogram is the key, it sorts the signal from the noise, and you've got to do the ideogram at speed. So when you draw your squiggly line in that box, that's all it is, you're just drawing a squiggle in a box. You've got to do it very quickly, you really have. And it creates a signal line in time and space between the distant target and yourselves to retrieve information. It's a very clever system, it's very effective. The Russians actually called this form thought. The Americans call it analytical overlay. An analytical overlay, you'll see that, can you see on your sheet something marked AOL? Yeah? Yeah, okay, that's analytical overlay, and what that's designed to do, it's designed when the mind is overwhelmed with noise. So I give you a target number and you think of a UFO, but that's not quite the target, or you think of an alien, or you think of chicken and chips. Well, that's a spurious thought, that's a noisy thing, and that would be declared as an AOL. And there are many types of ALL actually in operation. That there really is. We'll discover this as we get into it. For example, when you start doing this process, and we're going to work 2 targets, you might find as you go to the target, your conscious mind trying to think of what it is. Back to the principle of looking at a closed book. What is the contents of it? That's the principle we're working on. You might find that you get a feedback loop from it. So you're in constant, give you the target number, is it a pint of Guinness? You think it's a pint of Guinness, it's a pint of Guinness, it's a pint of Guinness. Or there's a rapid flow of ideas, it's a pint of Guinness, no, it's a vodka and orange. The mind starts, this is the things that we've got to learn to control. A popular one would be that one, you see a church, but in fact it's a cathedral. That's a very popular one, is that one, for example, that's called AOL matching. So in fact, in a lot of cases, you will see the target in the first second holographically, but you'll go for something else. So let us see, in some cases, the target is a marquee. You see for a split second the shape of a marquee, but your conscious mind kicks in and goes, it's a pyramid. and you do a pyramid. And this is the technique that you have to hone in on, separating the conscious from the subconscious, the signal from the noise. This is the technique. And as we can see there, this is word descriptors as well. So we've got various descriptions of words, and we have to move at a good pace when we're working through the target as well. I haven't got a word list with me because I didn't have time to do one, but we'll just move through this one. So the word list is descriptions like words to describe its smoke, tall, broad, I don't know, water might be present. Just write it all down, anything that you can write down. And in the first target, I'm going to walk you through it, you see. So I'm just going to walk you through the first one as to how we're going to do it. Because sometimes you've just got to do it. Is that okay so far, yeah? Wonderful. There was one group who just didn't, many years ago, just didn't get any of this, but it's marvellous. You're doing really well because you're taking in a lot of information in a short space of time. It's very impressive. Right. The TRN is the target number, follow so far. I'm going to give you like a bingo call set of numbers, and the ideogram is like a zip file that contains all the target data. We declare junk thoughts in the AOL column. Remember descriptors. Tell you what I'll do for time to make it easier on you. Any detail whatsoever you can think of about the target, write it down, and then turn over the back and draw what you think it is within about a 30-second time frame. Draw, is it your first go, take your time with it, but in general, it has to be done at speed because of the subconscious connecting to the target. If you can imagine that subconscious link being interfered with and interrupted by other remote viewers and all like that, you've got quite a psychic war on your hands, and that's kind of like what's going on behind the scenes. I haven't got time to do it today, but that might be another lecture called the East-West Psi War, it's known as, where Russia and America were actually psychically at war with each other at one point in the proceedings. And then at another point in the proceedings, they were actively liaising with each other. It's quite darkly comical, but there you go. So, moving on. Here we go. So some guidelines. You will probably, if you do this target, you will probably see bright, sharp, clear mental images, and they're probably noise, and therefore that must be mistaken. Anything that causes noise in here on the signal line, so it's like solid objects that cause a block on the subconscious, might be the lights behind you there at the bar, for example. We're not too bad in this room, but it might be something like that that causes a bit of interference from you seeing the target. Right, okay. So if you're getting strong dimensions, for example, if you're getting a strong pyramid shape or a strong tall thing that looks like a block of flats, you might be onto something. Because if the information signal, the intuitive signal, should I say, is strong on dimensions, you are on target. That is absolutely proven, by the way. And also, and this drives me wild, you will know as a collective group if there is motion, life form, or energy present. Even if you get the target completely wrong, the ideogram will say what it is. And that always amazes me because 9 times out of 10 they get the ideogram correct. And I know that this is your first go. So we'll just give you an example here of a typical sheet. Can you see that? I'll just step over here. Can you see what was going on here? So what they've done is I'm going to give you a target sheet there, target numbers. You draw your squiggly line in there. That's structure, I think, possibly water for an ideogram, very quickly. So you've got to do it very quick. That's actually a very good speed, that there. So about 2 seconds of the scribble. And then walk through the data. What is it bringing back to you psychically, subconsciously? What are you picking up? Is it white, green, black, the colours? Are textures slick, slippery, wet, key, rough, hard? Have we got smells? Are they fresh? Are they cold? Are the textures key, cold, metallic? Can you pick up temperatures? Is it frigid, cold, or warm? And I saw one that a proper remote viewer did of the sinking of the Titanic. My God, it was amazing. They'd done the water bit, they'd done a structure, they'd walked through it all, and then they just drew this Titanic. It was amazing what they'd done. I've also seen it where they detected the Madrid bombing using remote viewing. So this system that we're seeing at the moment does actually work. Now, I've only done enough sheets we wanted to do ideally 3 targets, but we're going to do 2. So the first one I'm going to walk you through. The second one we're going to actually do it. Does that sound like a deal? Yeah? Okay. Well done. Excellent. Well, let's walk through it. Okay. So what we'll do is I will give you a reference number, and I'm not going to do what I did at Birmingham, where I gave the reference number and then quickly revealed the target in the press of a button, which just ruined the whole presentation. But that was a few years ago, and I did have heat stroke. Right, okay, so the key thing of all this is the squiggly line. And if you imagine that I've given you a book in the form of like a bingo reference number, and I'm asking you, what is the contents of that reference number? Tell me. You walk through that, listing the details, any spurious thoughts are declared. For example, this remote viewer's had thoughts of a whale and declared it as an analytical overlay. There are very rare instances where they write down the target. There was one where I did in Blackpool where it was the Eiffel Tower, and she put in the AOL Eiffel Tower. It was unbelievable. It was actually the target, but she thought it was a spurious thought. She thought it was noise. She did not hear the subconscious signal. And that's what it's about. It's about hearing the subconscious signal. And it's present, and it is a real thing. We live in a certain dynamic in this world where we're a lot more than what we are. We are signal processors of the highest degree. And the Americans obviously got valuable insights with it. Do you think you're ready to have a go? Yeah. Is there any questions? No. I'm expecting some astounding results. Oh dear. So are we ready? I'm going to give you the bingo reference number, as it's called, which is 1070-1363. Okay. And I want you to walk through the data. Go on, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. You've got to do it. Squiggly line. Your little squiggly line. Look at the squiggly line. Crunch down on it. What is it telling you? What thoughts and impressions are you getting from a bloody squiggle? It's an amazing system. What's it giving you? When you walk through that sheet, giving it all the descriptions of what it is, turn over and draw it. Just draw it. Just do it. And see what we get. And what is always interesting is the revealing of the target, because some of you may go, oh, yeah, you used to got it. You know, it's a good target, is this one, actually, for practicing on. There'll be a free BASES checkbook and pen to the winner. Oh, dear. You've drawn your squiggly line, word descriptors, textures. There's also something I forgot to mention, which is, what is it like if you were there? What are you feeling if you were stood there at the target? What is it telling you? Be a lot of fun to see what the results are. When you're ready, turn over and just draw it. Draw what you think it might be. If you're having problems, just look at your squiggly line that you've drawn, turn it straight over and draw it. Because that's your subconscious ideogram that's telling you what the target is. And the US military developed this so that soldiers could use it in the field as psychic functioning. And there was recently a document released by the Russian Defense Ministry that they were actually doing this with their soldiers, doing psychic kind of remote viewing for them as well. But I think a soldier would be under so much stress it would be too noisy for them to do. Have you drawn your target? Are we still processing away there? Make sure you give it a good draw. What springs to mind? Structure, how tall is it? What does it look like? Are there any strong dimensions coming at you? Is there any strong imagery that really stands out at you? How are we doing? Would you like me to reveal the target, or are we... Yeah? Yeah, you sure? So, the target was this. Yeah? What has anybody got? Has anybody got anything that might resemble that? Yeah? Excellent. Yeah? Yeah? Come and show me. Let's just have a look. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's, yeah. So you've got the kind of, in the ideogram, you've got the target very roughly. Do you see what I'm saying? No. The technique is to decode that and go through it. It's quite precise, isn't it? Very precise. Anybody else? Oh, let's have a look at that one. Ah, okay. This is a classic. AOL problem that she's had here with this target. So what she's done with this is she's drawn the water and seen the structure, and then the conscious mind has gone, "That's a castle." No, it isn't. It's a bridge. And I bet at one point she maybe thought that could be a bridge or something else, but she drew a castle instead. And these are the typical early mistakes that people make. Not a mistake, I suppose, but it's kind of like it's analytical overlay. So your conscious mind has directed you away from water as the target and put a castle in its place. Yeah. Yeah, do you get it? Yes. Anybody else close? Oh, well, you probably know. Oh, you don't know what you got? Let's have a look. Have a look.
I've got a triangle.
Triangle.
Let's
Have a look. Ben's got it right. He knows what he's doing. You'd have got it right, kid. You're quite switched on. Yeah, that's excellent. So Ben's actually is indeed quite close. He's got a... Can you see it? That I don't know at that distance if you can see, but it's a very rough drawing. He's got the bridge structure there. He's got the cables going over. Very, very. You know, it's just a. Yeah, but
impression of sea and land.
Yeah, that's it. So he gets impressions of sea and land, and he went with it. So he follows that subconscious impression of sea and land and goes with it. You probably got the impression of sea and land and went with the castle. Yeah, that's how it was. It's clever. Clever system, isn't it? Clever. You can see, therefore, how clever the system is. And these guys who were remote viewers like Joseph Matmonigo and a few others, they could really accurately view things that are normally out of sight, yeah? So, for example, did we listen to the noise or the signal of the target? Did we see it? So, for example, did you see a lake? Or did you see an aeroplane, or assumed it to be an aeroplane? So you saw a bit of structure and thought, that's an aeroplane. Did you see boats? This is the kind of thing. So did you listen to the noise, or did you listen to the signal? Ben, for example, said that he saw, what was it, land, sea?
It was like a land and a sea.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ben saw the signal and went with it. You know, and that's what it's about. So do you see the concept of it between signal and noise within the subconscious framework? It's a very clever system, and it worked. It worked very well. And of course, these are some of the ideograms. Just look at your ideogram again in terms of the target. Did anybody get that triangle one, the structure ideogram? Yeah? Anybody get a subject-person one? No, somebody I know did this exercise zoned in on the prison, which is across the water from it. They were doing the session, and instead of drawing the bridge, they drew this building. And what was even more fascinating is they drew accurately how many windows were in the building. They were distracted by the prison, which is kind of like to its right of the target. It was fascinating. But there you go. So, water ideogram, anybody get that one? Yeah. Anybody get the dry land ideogram? No. Energetics and explosion, yeah. So you can see how these ideograms, these patterns and signatures kind of like communicate to our subconscious and give us a sense of direction as to what is going on. And I'm sure you would agree with me as well that it is severely dumbed down in human beings. It kind of like this technique, this ability, it's as if we've got like an iron veil, an iron curtain around us, really. It's quite interesting. I've got another target for you. We're only just doing two because of time. I'm pretty good on time, so we're doing two. So I'm going to do another one. This time, maybe do it by yourself rather than me walk you through it. Would that be all right? Just to see how it all goes. I'm going to shout the bingo number to you. Okay. And that number is 0792 7040.
random.
Yes. Absolutely. You draw it at speed. The idea is, I mean, it's your first attempt. You draw it very quickly to get the subconscious to actually interact. You do. So the reference number, do you want the reference number? We're just doing a second target, lovely, is that all right? Reference number 0792 7040. Just work through, what is that ideogram telling you? What does it say? What are the thoughts and impressions, textures, colours, smells? What's it like if you were there? Are you getting a strong dimensional structure coming at you? The fate of the world depends on you all. So your subconscious would be moving through time and space to retrieve that information. It would be getting a whole load of overwhelmed with sensory input from other areas, and the technique is to zone in on that subconscious signal. That split-second impression that you ignored is perhaps crucial to getting data from the target. And I think there might be enough space on your sheets to do a third target if you want to, even though we've got 2 sheets. Perhaps we can utilise, and is that all right, do you think? We maybe do that, can't we? Be rude not to. Right. Would you like me to reveal the target? Are you still drawing? Reveal? Yeah? Okay. And did anybody get that? Maybe somebody got the steel bar. Everybody gets the steel bar. Well, not everybody, but the group as a collective gets the steel bar. Yeah, because that is a strong dimension. That is a strong structure in the signal line. You see it, it's coming at you, and there it is. And if you were an experienced remote viewer, you would develop that further into what the signal is. You might see the discs. Anybody get the disc? Yeah, oh, excellent, excellent. Oh, well done, excellent, excellent. Yeah, so you see how you are separating the conscious from the subconscious to reveal the target, yeah? That's actually a crash in Italy, rumoured, about 1939 at Palermo in Italy. Mussolini thought he was being invaded by aliens from Mars, and I think he wrote to Churchill or somebody to say that he was being invaded, and he didn't understand. And it came under a special... Italy's Majestic 12 of the time was called Cabinet RS 33 under Marconi. They started a special department to research the UFOs. I don't know whether that's the actual photo, but they say it is. The crash at Palermo. Yeah, fascinating, isn't it? I'll tell you what we'll do then, because it would be rude not to. Why don't we do a third target? I'm sorry you've only got 2 sheets, but perhaps you can utilise it for a third target. This one has a tail to it. This target was actually drawn in full by somebody, which blew me away. Up in, where was it now? Up in Blackpool or somewhere. My God, he just said, I know what that is. And he just bloody drew it. It was unbelievable. So I'm going to give you the next reference number. And thank you very much for utilising the other sheets that you've got. I'll give you the next reference number and off you go. Boom. 27508753. That's your bingo number. 27508753. Draw the ideogram. What impressions do you get? You zone in on it. This is strong structure. So what structures are coming at you? What shapes are dominating? You will find that there will be shapes and structures that dominate this target, and you may zone in on them as well. They're very strong. So we'll see. Let's see if we can get it. Have a look at your description. Any impressions? What would it be like if you were there? What are the structural dimensions? Maybe turn around and draw it. Any colours? Anything that really stands out structural and dimension-wise? Are you getting anything that really, really is standing out? Shapes. What does your mind see of shapes? Numbers even, for that matter. Anything at all there? What you're picking up? Right. Shall I reveal it, or are you still... Was that a yes? No? Okay. Shout me when you... You get how it works. You get how the system integrates. It's very clever what they've done. Does anybody know how much time I've got left? Okay, Miles, that's timed well, thank you. No, we've got a full hour in there, that's great. Can I reveal this target?
Could you explain the coordinates? It's not like an OS map, is it?
No, it's not, mate. It's randomly generated numbers. It's known as a TRN, Target Reference Number Generator, TRN generator, taken from the site, Ed Dames' site, and it's a computer that just generates numbers. And they've used so many numbers they've now gone to letters. But don't get too hung up on it. It's actually the ideogram box that's the key. I'm going to reveal this target to you now. See if you can astound yourself with that one. Did anybody get the clocks? Yeah. Strong structure. Really powerful. Did anybody get the Nordic? Even the hand gesture? Yeah? Anybody close? Ben? No? Any good? No? Oh? Any good, anyone? Somebody got? Oh, right, wonderful. So this lady, that's what we're after. So you can see from this lady here, she's drawn a clock. I was expecting one of you to get that. And in the ideogram, she's even drawn a triangle of some description. So her subconscious was on target, yeah? And then what's happened is she's drawn a clock. So she's actually seen the very strong visual that's the clock. So what we've seen is how the subconscious, in fact, even our brains, acts as a signal processor. It acts as a signal processor. And it tunes into the universe and it can do some amazing things. I'll just hang on. So repeating again, what this lady has done is a clock which is correct on target. She's possibly even drawn a triangle but wasn't sure what that was. An experienced remote viewer would actually zone in on that triangle bit there and zone in and in and in until they start getting data and start getting a drawing. In this very short time that I've done remote viewing with you, a proper remote viewing session, they could have anything up to 8 to 9 drawings on it when the Americans did it. This is for entertainment purposes, of course, and insights only. But if you want to have a look, I do have a file on my computer. If nobody got the CDs from yesterday, I can email it to you. If you make a small donation, I'll just email the file to you. It's got a lot of data on the remote viewing side of things. And that happened to me when in 2014, at the height of the Ukraine crisis, where I had this extraordinary vision, this extraordinary doomsday warning sent to me from what is the Nordics. And they were actually communicating with someone else across a very advanced network, as I talked of yesterday, but that was drawn by Lloyd Canning, and I just hope that, I've given you a very of the briefest insight into the world of remote viewing and how it links into the grander scheme of things, and probably how the Russians and Americans probably established communication with the ETs via these methodologies that we're seeing. So that's all we've got time for from my talk, and thank you very much. You've been a fab audience. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.